Hi everyone, welcome to my review of the Sennheiser IE200. So, as some of you will know, Sennheiser broke their long-standing absence in the ever-changing IEM landscape with the release of the IE900 way back in 2021. So after that came the relatively affordable, but still considered quite expensive IE600, which was an instant hit. So IE300 was another IEM from Sennheiser, and that was basically sort of a love or hate situation for many. Something was still missing in the sub $200 budget segment, which has been predominantly reigned over by strong chi-fi contenders. However, this is the answer. Sennheiser's response, Sennheiser's repost to the chi-fi contenders, the IE200, and whether this is the chi-fi killer that some people have proclaimed it to be, or whether it's a dud as some others have proclaimed it to be, is basically the question I try to answer in this review. Now, features. So, first of all, it comes in, with this pretty rudimentary Sennheiser box. I do like the design of the box somewhat. So that is that. And so in terms of other features, before I talk about ergonomics, build, and comfort, this has diffuse field equalization. This has 7mm true response single dynamic drivers, which gives it a very coherent sound, I have to say. Nearly zero total harmonic distortion. And of course, it's very compact, as is pretty evident. Adjustable ear hooks, braided cable with MMCX connectors and a 3.5 plug. Of course, you can use other Sennheiser cables with this. This has a collar situation going on at the end of the connector, which DMS has talked about. And of course, you can snip the collar, and then you get to use a variety of other MMX connector cables with this. Now, I talked about the box, standard blue accented Sennheiser packaging box. The presentation is rather modest. You get this IM, you get a leather pouch, a very basic leatherette pouch, and a total of 6 pairs of tips, 3 silicone and 3 foam tips. The cable is, as is pretty evident, it feels okay to me. However, it is not the most high-end looking cable. So that's that. Sennheiser stock cables also have a memory wire based ear guide system, basically is what they're calling it. And it's finicky at first, but once you figure out how to mold this to your own ears, putting the IEMs on becomes second nature. Now, comfort, I think, is incredible to say the least. This is one IEM that I have been consistently able to wear when sleeping. Now, I'm not necessarily the IE200 only, but also the IE900, which I regularly wear on my walks, when I sleep, and also for pleasure. I do want to say that, these are different leagues, so this is by no means, me showing this is by no means a reference to how this might be close to the IE900. It is not. The IE900 is a different league, and it scales with better quality amplification. Although you see me now running the IE900 of the FIO BTR7 dongle DAC amp. This does not bring the truest potential out of the IE900. I do feel my Sony DAB, the $3,000 Sony DAB that I happen to own, does do this justice. This does not. This is more of a portable situation I have going on, but more on sources later. So the IE200 looks decent and is fairly comfortable, very comfortable to wear, but how do they sound? Can it give you some taste of its more expensive cousins? Sennheiser advertises a dual tuning feature for IE200. So essentially what happens is the supply tips can be adjusted in 2 different positions. And so you can have the tip out here, or you can have the tip slightly further out. And this does give you 2 different tunings. You can adjust the bass with the tuning, and you can bring out the mid-range forward. Overall, guys, I prefer the stock sort of position of the tips, and its tuning in general, I want to say, is still V-shaped, but more neutral and less V-shaped than the IE600 and the IE900. The bass is somewhat polite. It's reined in, but there's still decent bass. I think bass quality is pretty decent and perhaps among the best that I've heard under $200, because when I talk about bass, guys, it's not just about total impact, and if you're craving total impact, you might get other IEMs in this price range from chi-fi contenders which give you more impact. However, it's a very mature bass. This is tight, it's deep, it's textured, and timbrally the bass sounds right. Now, mid-range is an aspect of Sennheiser that has been lauded. I think the Sennheiser HD650 and 600 perhaps have the most famous mid-ranges across any headphone on the planet, I think. However, even the Sennheiser HD800 and 800S have pretty decent mid-range, in the sense that although the mid-range is not, in your face or very present, perhaps, it's still very timbrally accurate. So that timbral accuracy is still something that, Sennheiser maintains with their IEM lineup. And this IEM also has very impressive mid-range timbre. So female vocals in particular sound just excellent, and male vocals sound very good. But it is the instrument timbre that I feel like this stands out for. So timbrally, I feel like this blows other Chi-Fi IEMs out of the water in this price range. Yes, there are Chi-Fi IEMs like the Shure S12 and S12 Pro, which are perhaps more resolving and all that. But when it comes to timbre, I think it's just in a league of its own in this price point. And I will talk about other types of subjective sound presentations like soundstage and all that. Now, treble. Treble is basically where the i200 actually improves upon its pricier siblings. The i600, the i300. The treble energy has been reined in significantly, and it sounds a lot smoother and controlled as a result. Low to mid treble area is still somewhat pronounced, so you do get the signature clarity of I series and plenty of air up top. However, your source pairings can determine how trebly this sounds. So the FIO dongle DAC amp, which of course is, FIO has a weird thing going on with their treble, because everything that FIO has made so far that I've heard, whether it's M17 DAP, which I loved, whether it's this dongle, which I greatly appreciate, and several other IEMs, FIO doesn't do treble very well. I feel like they have this zinginess, this sort of sharpness, or this just overall grating quality, or slight metallic timbre rather, is the best way to put it in the treble presentation of almost everything that they've touched. No disrespect to FIO, but that's just how I feel. So with the BTR7, the IE200 can have a slightly zingy treble, but overall the synergy, I think, despite the fact that the treble doesn't work so well, other aspects of the synergy are pretty excellent, which I'll come to later. So my point is, the treble here is definitely more polite, but depending on what you're pairing it with, you can have a zingier treble or an airier treble versus a more polite treble. On my Sony DAB, the treble is pretty well behaved. Technicality is pretty impressive in its price category. It has excellent separation and imaging. Soundstage, I think, is basically where it stands out with regard to its other Chi-Fi sort of contenders and competitors. Because its soundstage is wide, I do think it's a function of its tuning. At the same time, all the IE series IEMs that I've tried, the 600 and 900, have very impressive soundstage, which I think is not just a function of the frequency response, but overall it's very well done soundstage, and it's wide, it's deep, resolution is decent. It's nothing, in the same league as IE600, so I don't understand where these comparisons are coming from. However, the IE200 does have decent detail retrieval. It is not as resolving as the Shure S12, so you do get other Chi-Fi IEMs which are more resolving. However, it's the overall package which I think this sort of impresses you with. And finally, like I was saying, timbrally, this is very natural and right sounding, perhaps the best I've heard in this price range. Now, to talk about source pairing, guys, like I said, I've been trying dongle DACs like this. I've been trying expensive DAPs like the Sony WM1 ZM2 that I happen to own. This does not scale with higher end amplification as much. You can drive this off anything. You can drive this off an Apple dongle, and I think you'd get pretty close to its maximum presentation potential. With this, I do think the synergy overall is decent because you get more clarity with the FIO dongle. It's a BTR7, by the way. It's brand new. I just recently got it, and this might get its own review. But overall, this is a pretty powerful, pretty transparent sounding dongle. But I do think that, this does have a slight metallicness to its treble. And i200, however, overall benefits from the synergy because this has more clarity. And I feel like the clarity does, sound very nice with this. This also sounds very nice with the Q-Style M15 dongle. With the Sony DAP, I felt that this was great because the bass was brought out a bit more. However, like I said, I do think that, slightly zingier presentations or dongles and DAPs and DACs with slightly zingier presentations somehow worked with this. But bear in mind, I can also handle treble pretty well, so that's that. Overall, guys, in conclusion, the i200 in my book is a very decent IM, and I recommend it without hesitation. I do want to say that it is not nearly in the same league as i600, certainly not in the same league as i900. It is definitely an improvement over any Chi-Fi IM I've heard in timbral prowess, because timbrally this sounds right, and that matters to me, guys. Yes, it does not have the final bit of resolution that some Chi-Fi IMs may have. Yes, some Chi-Fi IMs might give you better bass impact even. But overall, I think this doesn't do anything wrong. It does everything well. Great tonality, slightly colored, but it's like DMS says, and this is where I agree with DMS. It is not neutral, but it's more exciting than neutral, so I think that's absolutely bang on target. This has very decent technicalities and class-leading timbre for its price point. That's it, guys. I do recommend this IM. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for my next one. Bye-bye.